Welcome to the Board Game Marketing Podcast. Let's cue the intro. This is the #1 podcast to learn marketing strategies for your board game. Whether you're just starting on your first game or an experienced designer, you've come to the right place. My name is Nalin, and let's talk marketing for your game. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Board Game Marketing Podcast. In this podcast, I interview creators who have successfully funded their ideas on Kickstarter to learn more about their journey to launch and help you formulate your own plan. I also bring on experts in the tabletop space to talk about all the facets of marketing and building your game publishing company. If you've been listening for a while now, you know that I hold nothing back. So in these episodes, be prepared to hear me ask the hard questions and really get down to the finer details. Let's get started. Launch Chai, welcome.
Hey.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, and I'm super excited to have them on because they're going to be talking to us about marketing for their campaigns and their Kickstarters and all their successes that they've had so far. So before we get into those nitty-gritty details and they're asking the hard questions, I'd love it for you if you could, tell us about yourself, how you got into game design and how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. We're Dan and Connie. I am a full-time teacher by trade, and I teach grade 4 currently. Daniel did many years in different entrepreneurial pursuits, humanitarian aid, what else? English and all kinds of stuff. For us, we really were people who played games at the start, and then, and we got thinking, how can we make games better? How can we make a game and kind of express our own creativity? And that's kind of where Chai was born.
Yeah, so I guess for me, like any kid, your dad teaches you Monopoly and Scrabble and stuff, and I remember I was like 5 and we played Risk, 3 hours into the night, and he was like telling me how to do strategy, and then he invaded my countries and I just cried because the loser had to put away all the pieces. So yeah, I have we all have these stories, right? And I was a semi-professional chess player for like a decade and as a hobby on the side, but it was the only modern board game I had played up to Catan and then Ticket to Ride. So it wasn't until both of us visited my uncle in Toronto. He was like, hey, you want to play a game called Puerto Rico? We're like, sure, never heard of it. Apparently it was the #1 game on BGG in 2001 or something. But
okay.
Yeah, and that opened our mind to Euro games. And I had met a designer of Carcassonne when I lived in Germany for a year. And I had no idea the importance of Carcassonne. And
yeah, you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Person, what?
Yeah, that's cool.
He gave me a ride home from the chess tournament.
No way.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, we just played that in the dorm. Way to go, buddy. So, yeah, we've always been surrounded by games. Or Connie, you had was it card games growing up?
Yeah, we played card games. We did, Game of Life, that kind of simple luck kind of games, right? It was university when my friends actually had an overnight Catan tournament with Star Wars in the background because, they go together or something.
Yes, check.
Yeah, exactly. So that kind of was my gateway into modern board games.
Yeah.
Awesome. And how did you get from there to create your own? That's kind of that little gap right there. What's that about?
I guess every gamer wants to make a game, I think. Or there's a game in every gamer. That's usually what people say. So yeah, we became collectors after playing Puerto Rico, and we're from, we have Kijiji, so we're swapping all these games with people, and game nights, game monthly things, helping at conventions, and eventually you're like, hey, maybe we could take a stab at this. So I was making a submarine game, went to a design conference and realized, hey, let's pick a different theme that people can gravitate towards. Maybe I'll make this sub game in the future. But yeah, tea seemed very approachable. And Connie had a tea collection. that did we sell when we got married, or?
I think I sold my mugs. I had all these Japanese beautiful matcha mugs. But
Oh, wow.
yeah, when we got married, we just didn't have space for things to get rid of it, which was devastating. But yes, I was a tea hoarder, so
And now
it was a unified theme for both of us, right?
Totally. We have more tea than we had before.
Yeah.
Because like people send us tea every Christmas, birthday, we get more tea. So.
We got to be tea influencers one year for Harney and Sons, which was really cool.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
So.
That's awesome. So how did you pick chai as the theme of tea? There's obviously a ton of tea out there.
Yeah.
Why chai?
I guess it means tea in most languages. So cha in Chinese, or if you're in Turkey, also chai. I think the only ones that don't use tea is like Poland, which would be herbata, a few other ones. But yeah, so the title, like everyone just knows. In North America, we're kind of silly because we'll ask for a chai tea latte, which is like tea latte. So yeah, it just means tea.
That's awesome. Okay, that's really cool. And I have to ask before we get into the marketing stuff, what are your favorite teas? What do you love drinking?
Yeah. Oh, lots of different ones. I love rooibos. Anything with
red tea. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So I know it's not technically tea, but mint chocolate rooibos. I like chai. I'm currently having some honey chai here.
Nice.
What else do I like?
Very on brand.
Lots.
Very on brand.
Yeah.
London Fog, we both like.
London Fogs, yeah.
That was like our first date. So that's honey in a black tea that has frothed milk. Yeah.
Wow, that sounds decadent.
Now I gotta look over and see. Oh, I like cranberry tea as well. Well, not real tea, but cranberry with different fruit infusions. Those are really good.
David's tea stuff, but
David's tea stuff. Okay.
What about you?
That's about it for me too.
About it.
We're brand new to like yerba mate. This is like the second cup I've ever had. That's another one. Oh, fermented tea. So pu'er. We had no idea what it was.
Yeah.
And then our factory actually sent us a pu'er brick.
And it had chai on it.
Yeah. Like our
really?
It was
That's
really
awesome.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can like chip away at that. We have another tea company. They gave us 50 samples. So we've been like trying random ones. That's been fun.
Yeah. Oh, matcha's really great. Yeah. What about you? Do you like?
Yes, I actually every single morning I drink peppermint tea. In the morning.
Oh, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have a big mug of peppermint tea just to take me through the day. I used to drink coffee, but now I'm like, nah, no more of that. Let's just like get those floral senses going just to wake me up. Yeah, but my wife actually loves rooibos. It's her favorite tea, and she just had like 3 mugs of rooibos today, just FYI.
There we go.
And Peter says in Czech it's Raj, maybe? I can't remember how to pronounce the accent
right here.
Yeah.
Right there. Yeah. I think it's Hosh. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, yeah, tea from around the language. In Thai, it's actually also cha, which sounds kind of like tea, cha, in all these other languages too. So, yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get into like the marketing stuff now, right? Like, okay, you guys have had 2 campaigns now, right? So for the first one and second one, obviously probably a lot of different preparation, right? So let's talk about each of them. How did you go about kind of getting the word out there for your first one, for your first game with like, starting from zero, starting from scratch? What did you do?
Yeah, we noticed that it's really hard to try to share about your game without coming across as like salesy. So we thought the best way was actually to follow a common, I guess, marketing ratio, which some people might not be familiar with, which is sharing a couple about the industry that you're in. So like taking pictures of other board games and talking about them, because then you're adding value into the industry. So like we would take pictures of us playing Azul or Santorini or Century Spice Road. And those games are really similar to our games. So it just helped us feel more like confident in ourselves that yes, we can talk about family games, and chai happens to be one of them too.
And it allowed us to give feedback as well, right? So we'll kind of write a mini review on the Instagram caption, and then it broadens other people's horizons too when they're reading it, and they're like, oh, I haven't tried that one. That one sounds cool, right? So
yeah, and we all have friends who are like, hey, you guys are gamers. What game should I buy my aunt? Or like Christmas is coming up, or my spouse, or whomever. So that allowed us to like just make it easier to share that information and whatnot. So yeah, having a few of those out of every like 7 posts that you share, and then having maybe 1, maybe 2 max on you as a person, because people want to get to know us, which was really surprising to us. We went to Essen, and we're like walking around outside by the IKEA, and then a lady came running up from, I believe it was Brazil.
Yeah. It was Brazil or Argentina, and we were like, wow.
Yeah, so they knew us from Instagram.
She was so excited to meet us, and it was very humbling, I would say.
So we had the same experience running up to like the Board Game Geek booth and taking a picture of Rodney Smith.
Yeah.
So
we're going up to Elizabeth as well.
Elizabeth Hargrave.
Yeah, we were so excited, and we got a picture and autograph and everything. So.
Yeah, so like maybe 1 about yourself every week that you post if you're posting 7 pictures. And then 1, maybe 2 at most on your own product, because you don't want to spam people, but you also want to share what you do. So, yeah, I think Jamie Stegmaier does that really well. He obviously has a larger following, but he's always very active on, hey, here's my cat. The cat is in a box. We love board games. And
we love cats.
Yeah, so there's a lot of overlap, and tea happens to be one of them, or beverages with board games.
Awesome. So you mentioned you started off on Instagram, right? Why did you pick that platform? Why not something else? Why not Twitter? Why not Facebook? Why not Pinterest? There's TikTok, right? Why not that?
Well, we focused on all of them, so you can auto post or have the platform post for you across to Facebook, which we had. We made sure we answered every question because we really want to be personable, which is getting harder to do for sure. But Instagram is visual, and board games are visual. And honestly, not a lot of publishers are on Instagram because they don't have a lot of pictures about their game. There's a lot of text about games, but so we started, I believe it was in January or February of the year.
2018, is it? Or 2017? So. Okay. Oh, it's been a while.
Yeah.
What year is it?
Okay. Totally. Yeah. It's not 2020, that's for sure. So we ran up to our campaign 8 or 9 months before we launched, basically. We started our page, and we're very diligent doing that. So.
Okay, so doing all this, right, using tools to post, to schedule things, realistically, how long does all this take?
A lot of time.
A lot of work, yeah. It takes more work than you would think, right? So even just planning out the posts and captions, it's a lot of mental energy that sounds ridiculous to say. That takes a lot of work, but it does, yeah.
It feels like it's intrusive to your life in a way. For example, I was on the phone with my dad today, and I was making tea, the first pot of this, and in my mind, I'm like, I need to make an Instagram post, a boomerang post of this tea.
And that thought crosses our mind all the time.
So I have my AirPods in, I'm pouring tea while I'm recording, taking the picture, and having a conversation with my dad. And I haven't posted it yet. I totally should. And now I have guilt that I haven't. But life, try to figure out ways that don't create stress, but also create moments of social content. Because people want to hear what you're doing. If it's not tea, we might share like a food post, or that's one of Connie's great hobbies.
I love food.
Homemade pizza. We're like, hey, here's a pizza. And then people are like, we should make a board game on pizza. We're like, okay, why not?
Okay. All right. So like basically try to find, like you were saying, find time to be social from even just your daily life too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And from there, do you like make just bank time to like write all the captions or schedule all the posts and, put all the pictures up? Or is it kind of like every day you kind of go day by day, right? Like a lot of people don't understand that process.
We're very organic, and researching other influencers, they kind of do that too, because one of the main things you need to do is be authentic. If you put this awesome picture up, it can be awesome and authentic, but if you have it where it has like text on it and like a promo code and everything. Like that's great, but that's usually not what like we all want to see. Mm-hmm. So we have some product photography and whatnot, but usually it's, hey, here's a cup of tea, and oh yeah, let's make it Steep Games related. So we'll grab our chai box and put it in the background. Like just have a little more thought into it, but make sure it's high quality. And if that means that you have to take time and, take 10 pictures in advance and plan it out, like go for it, because social media is different for everyone, but just keep investing because consistency over time is definitely the most important.
And going back to authenticity too, really nobody wants to be spammed on Instagram or Facebook or whatever with constant messaging around your products. So, like I don't like it, so I don't want to do that to other people, right? So, it's important to kind of tell your story and who you are as people and get to know people, and then also promote your product too.
Yeah, someone told me the other day that like stuff that you can't do in real life, don't do online. So for example, if you go to a party or like an event, you don't just like go to the stage, take the microphone and say, check out my stuff. Right? You never do that. Yeah. Like, why would you do that online?
Absolutely.
So someone asked here, pictures are good for Instagram. Let's talk about that a little bit. Like, how do you know what kind of pictures will get the engagement, that traction, since you did start on Instagram, right? You started building a community on Instagram. How did you know what was going to work or was going to work? How did you determine to keep going with this, to like remove that? Like, what was your process like?
Yeah, sometimes it's trial and error. I know for us at the very beginning, it really was. So we would kind of look back and say, well, this one worked. People really liked engaging with that one. Or, nobody commented at all on this other picture. Clearly, they don't actually care. I think there were a few board games that we put up that were older board games, and that didn't get much engagement at all because people didn't know what they were, right? So, so a lot of trial and error.
The timing of pictures, maybe figure out where your audience is. So if they're all your friends and family, that's totally okay. Post in your time zone when you would normally be browsing, your Instagram feed or whatnot. It's not as important on Instagram compared to, let's say, Twitter, where if you post at 4 a.m., Eastern Standard Time or your standard time, you won't get the traction compared to like a Thursday or Friday afternoon when people are browsing social media. So, just think of things in advance and how you would consume, I guess, social media. The important part of doing more newer games, unfortunately, there's the cult of the new. Yeah. So if you don't have newer games, that's totally fine. You can play it on Tabletopia or TTS, and that's free content because you can take a picture of the digital game and like write some comments. Another important part would be asking a question. So, hey, just played Calico the first time. Had a blast with the cats. Do any other board gamers have cats as well? Something like that. Yeah. Personally, I'm allergic to cats, so I have to think of different questions. But we still love cats, and you can make awesome pictures just with your cell phone. You don't need a professional DSLR camera. We used to be wedding photographers, and it's too much work setting up everything for board games. Just make it authentic. Phones are good enough these days.
That's a really good point too about like you don't need all this professional stuff.
Yeah,
stuff that you have right now works.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and you brought up a really like key word too, Dan, when you were talking about all setting up content and the type of content that works on Instagram, right? You brought up the word audience. Right? So taking a step back a little bit now, with Instagram, you started on Instagram. How did you start growing your audience, and who was your audience? How did you know who they were for your ultimate Kickstarter campaign? That's one thing people really struggle with, finding out who their one true audience is. What was the process like for you?
Yeah, for us, it might have been a little bit easier because we were directing people into a Facebook group, and Facebook has a built-in, I think Instagram does now, especially since it's owned by the same company, but Facebook groups, it tells you the breakdown of age, their location, and then gender. So we had a really good, 45% ladies, 55% men breakdown. We realized, wow, tea is something that brings everyone together. It's not your dungeon crawler or miniature game. So
which are great, but
Totally,
it's way heavily male and then very few females. So
and for those that are listening, if you haven't already, check out Elizabeth Hargrave's presentation she did on gender and board games, specifically like women representation. And she breaks down the top 100 board game geek games and their covers and how attractive they are for everyone, and also the designers too. So we kind of had that in heart as well. Like, how can we make this just accessible? And if you're walking into Target or you go on Kickstarter, like, hey, that's a game for my
anybody.
Mom. Or my kid could play it or something, right? So for us, it was probably just family board games. Like, how did other family board games market themselves? And then how can we learn from that and augment it into our own game?
Got it. Okay, so you figured that your audience was going to be, again, people who like family board games, just because you saw your analytics in the back end that said it was men and women, but predominantly evenly, which typically, like you were touching on, I think, typically skewed one way or the other for other specific games.
Absolutely.
So just taking the data and making sure that you're using it in a way that works for your game and works for what you want to do for your target audience. Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
You said, go ahead.
Just with that, we would then base targeted ads on games that were similar to what we thought the market was for our game. So you can tag, Ticket to Ride, or Splendor, or Catan.
Or Santorini.
Yeah. And that also bases what kind of reviewers you might interact with in the future. So, for us, the Dice Tower seemed to be a good fit because they have family gamers.
Yeah. And then we also did Man versus Meeple, so as well, right? We didn't want to go with a super heavy Euro kind of reviewer, and then they're not going to like the game, and their audience is not going to be the same ones as ours. So,
got it. So what I'm taking away is like all the decisions you made down the line for marketing was based on who you figured would potentially, kind of like your game.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it was like the reviewers you mentioned, people who, what else kind of was determined from that point?
Yeah. Well, also conventions. So I went to a couple, and one would be PAX Unplugged the weekend before we launched. We also had tons of play testers who were trying to figure out who really enjoyed the game, especially those who played it. So you can start to see correlations by the end of it. I had a friend who was in the booth beside me because we had to rent one together. And it was interesting. He had guys over the age of 60 play his game because it reminded them of a war game. It had all these little hexes and whatnot. And for him, he was really surprised because he thought his game was for 11-year-olds, family game, right? And it's vibrant colors and artwork. And I could see how he got that perspective. And yet there's all these war gamers coming in. So we're trying to figure out how do you change the way you approach the marketing to make sure that they come on board even more. So your game might not even be made for the audience you think it's made for. So we're just trying to play around with that. Our next couple games, we'll try with different just age groups and people in different cultures and make sure that we're actually speaking the same language.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, really, because a lot of the time people have very specific things they're doing and designing in their head, right? And sometimes the audience that you think is going to receive what's in your head is completely different. So I'm really glad you brought that out, because a lot of people are trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
Absolutely.
But you can just go and find a square hole and just put your game in there too. It might be instead of designing for 11-year-olds, you're creating something for 6-year-olds, which is great.
Sometimes you don't know until you start play testing, right? And you get the feedback, and that's a really integral part of our process, I think, was our play testing and getting it out there.
Love it. Okay, so now we're at the point where you're funneling people into your Facebook group, right? We're getting closer to that Kickstarter now. In this Facebook group, what was happening? How were you talking about Kickstarter? How were you getting people excited? What was happening there so that when it did launch, there were people going into your campaign?
Yeah, totally. So we actually initially launched our Facebook group as the Playtesters group. And so we put our free PDF of our files on the internet and said, enter your email, go get it, go try it out, tell us how you like it. And I think that was really huge. I feel like at the time, a lot of people weren't doing that, or they were charging a little bit of money for it. So yeah, we had a lot of really awesome people come by and a lot of engagement. We did find though that there was an interesting shift when it became more of a Kickstarter group. Obviously, some of the playtesters did stay. A lot actually did stay, but some actually chose to kind of leave and go to other groups. So, and that's fair. That happens. But I would say, yeah, the momentum was because of that playtesting and people engaging and talking about tea and talking about board games. It was really cool to see.
Totally. And there'd be like memes posted about tea or I guess in the past year and a half, Baby Yoda, drinking tea. Yeah, like all these cultural references, or I think the U.S. women's team, when they won the soccer championship, the captain, right? She like did a little tea pinky wave, and so like, all those things you can bring us together, and we can have a little chuckle. So making sure that like you understand your niche and just have fun with it. Yeah, we're still trying to navigate like how do we go forward with that group or other groups. They do take a lot of time just to keep the engagement going.
Yeah.
So our policy of always answering every comment, like I've been slacking the past couple of weeks. So shout out to anyone who's watching right now. But yeah, going forward, like, do we have our full-time employee answer those? Do people still crave the personal touch from us, which we want to do? And yeah, if you message us on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook in a private message, like, yeah, it'll be one of us replying back, hopefully pretty quickly. But yeah, we want to have that connection, but we're just, as you grow, you're trying to figure it out yourself too, like a normal growing pain. So
yeah, so I think that brings up a point too, like marketing, like how personable can you still be as you continue growing, right? A lot of people who are listening or viewing or watching this replay are going to be game designers who want to be full-time publishers and publish multiple games. What do you do? How do you balance that authenticity with automation or hiring someone or directing people to an FAQ page? How do you balance that and what is right for everyone? It feels like what you're trying to say too is you're still trying to find that balance for yourself too and your own publishing company. Am I kind of getting that right?
Totally, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think even on the Facebook group, we decided to have one of our community members take over kind of a weekly fun tea trivia kind of thing. And that's just because we didn't have the bandwidth, honestly, to do it. And she was really good at it. So we're like, go do it. We empower you to go literally start this. So that's actually been so good for us because it kind of takes that pressure off of us. But it still builds the momentum and the energy and the enthusiasm within the group. So yeah, so I guess we're learning to delegate certain things and, to other people who do it better than we can even. And even with FAQs and game trivia, when people reach out to us, I know we worked really hard on getting a massive document done with literally any question you can think of. That, has to do with the game, the nitty gritties, right? And that's been so good just to be able to funnel people to that and say, okay, it's all in this document, as opposed to kind of going and answering each one with three paragraphs. Right? So
like right now we're making a companion app for the month. We'll release that, and then people can put in tea recipes, or it has a built-in scorecard. So if you're playing chai, you can just bring your app up and put in the scores. It'll save it to the phone, and then future games as well. So that's kind of our automation as a really small publisher. But if it's for you as a designer or also a small publisher, like figuring out, can I use social media tools like Hootsuite? That would be an excellent way to post on Twitter or Facebook. Or TweetDeck. There's all these different apps and whatnot to get you started. I wouldn't encourage automating likes or comments. I get a couple every week where it's like, hi, and then insert your name.
Sometimes it literally says insert name here.
Yeah, because they don't know how to use the tool. My campaign is live right now. I'd love to partner with you. Please share. And I'll have to mute them or yeah, it's just not a good interaction. So honestly, it would be better if you copy and pasted your little blurb and changed the name and dropped it in people's inboxes, because at least you tried harder. So yeah, if you're reaching out to people, make sure that it's super personable.
Yeah, and it's authentic, right? Nobody wants to feel like a number or being used for
Totally.
a certain sales purpose, right? So try to be as authentic as you can.
Yeah, and on that note, like, you still gotta hustle in a way. Like,
Yeah.
you have to cut through the noise and make sure that
It's
your
true.
game reaches the masses. So what we had was we posted a picture of our box art in some Facebook groups just to help people get into our Facebook group at the start.
Yeah.
And then we said, if you're interested, like, we'll message you about the free print and play. So I remember literally messaging about probably 400 different people on Facebook who had liked or commented. And it took me about a week of my free time, because Facebook's algorithms, they only let you send like 20 messages an hour or something.
And also people reply and want to chat, right? And so,
Yeah.
it's a long thing.
But I honestly would say we probably had like a 80% success rate, because we had like the Google Doc ready for a feedback form. We had the free print and play that you could download, like, even through Facebook Messenger. It was a personalized text, and, you know, getting to know the person, or maybe I'd seen them post somewhere. So yeah, we grew the group from 0 to, I think it was about 1,000 people within like a couple months, actually, just having nice box art and a print and play. So be creative, because we might have been one of the first doing that from the get-go of like a small group to medium size. But like, there's so many other ways you can do that. And now let's say TikTok, right?
Which we're not on, so we have no idea. We're millennials that don't know how to use TikToks.
That's right. So find your niche.
Yeah. But do you remember at the beginning, we were posting in different groups with the 4 different options of box art as well. And we really tried to elicit feedback and just got people engaged that way too. So
yeah, it's probably spammy now because we see it all the time.
Yeah, now we see it all the time.
Just try to be more creative. That's
basically you're pioneers of this whole thing. Well, that was my key takeaway. I love that you're pioneers. I love it.
There's other people who have done it.
Jamie, we learned from Jamie.
I don't know if Jamie's ever done that, but
I don't know, but we learned a lot from him.
So those were like really, really great points there. That like going in there, being like you were talking about, being really authentic, but also the hustle that it takes too. A lot of people want to see, success overnight. They're like, okay, this game has raised $15,000. I can probably just like launch my game and that'll happen. Kickstarter will just bring people to me. But as you both were touching on, it takes so much time. You said it took you just a week of your free time to message 400 people, right? Yeah. How, like, I don't know who's listening right now, or watching the replay, but how many people, can actually say they've messaged 400 people in a week, right? Not a lot. Right. So I love that you brought that up.
Another thing, once conventions come back, like I don't know why, but I went to different Protospiel events or here in Canada, and no one had like a giveaway at their game. So yeah, we had like a little box, and by the end of the weekend, I would have to type in 600 emails. My dad was so excited, he took bags of these, and we then put in like thousands of emails from all these conventions. With like a free game on that weekend, or like when we fulfill, we'll send you a game, that sort of thing. In our playtesting group, it was a monthly giveaway of a game. So you get a Chai Deluxe just for showing up in the group and doing a playtest. So yeah, I think a lot of publishers, we shy away from giveaways, but if you do it with like a personal touch, and it's actually a good giveaway, not like, here's a sticker of Dan and Connie's face, like that. I don't
Nobody
even want
wants that.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm going to take one. Wait,
we'll take one of you too.
Well, this is all really great, right? So you're like building up this community, and people are like talking, having conversations. You're doing these giveaways. People are like here because they want to talk about the game. They want to talk about tea, right? And this was your first Kickstarter, right? How did this growth differ from a second Kickstarter? Because you did, this is your second one, right? Yeah. How was it different?
Well, unfortunately, COVID threw us for a loop. So we changed which game we were going to do. We were going to do Tea for Two. which is our 2-player version of Chai, but it's totally different. It's like Seven Wonders Duel, same kind of difficulty. But so we were going to launch that last March, maybe through May, like around that timeline. And then we couldn't get review copies. Like China was shut down. There's all these different things. So we're like, hey, let's work on this little expansion that we've been thinking about. And we just changed gears because managing expectations is also huge when you start building a community. And people are excited for Tea for Two. And like even as of January now, we've like 9 months have gone by. So people are getting excited for the game again. But you have to give people what they want, right? Give the people what they want. So we made an exciting little expansion and relaunched basically a reprint of our game. So we sold out of the first print run, and to finance the next print run as a small publisher, we did a campaign, and people who hadn't heard of Chai before, they were glad to jump on board. So we were extremely thankful how it turned out. We had no expectations if it was 50,000 or 500,000. We just wanted to reward our community with a little expansion. So for that one, we said it would be $20 for the expansion plus free shipping anywhere in the world. I'm kind of eating my words because COVID has like tripled shipping.
Super expensive.
Oh, yeah. It must have, yeah.
Totally. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter because people get a cool little expansion at their door. It's like a reminder of the community and the game that they enjoy. And it's keeping people interested in the other games as well. So I think something that we should be reminded of is value acquisition of people in your community. So I can't remember what it was, but there was some article that said each Facebook user is worth like $22. So they kind of attribute that to all the marketing that all the different companies, maybe even board game companies, would pay for you to be on Facebook. So you are the commodity. So in a sense, how much would I pay for, 10,000 more people in the Chai community? It would be awesome. I don't know what the dollar figure would be, but keeping people on board is just huge for the success of your current products and the ones going forward. So if you have fans and people that love your game, like make sure you just take care of them and that they're there for the journey that you're on as well.
Love it. And for this reprint that you did, was a lot of the marketing very different? Were you because you did a lot of organic stuff, right, in the first one. For a second launch, was it still more organic, or is it a lot of like paid ads going behind it too? Since you brought up how each person's worth $22 on Facebook.
Sure. And that could just be random fun facts, but we basically did no marketing for the second campaign because it was the same product plus an expansion. So, and we even switched the game like 3 weeks out from launch. We're like, it's not Tea for Two, it's now an expansion.
Surprise!
Yeah.
So there's still some confusion. We'll get emails like, hey, where do I find Tea for Two? I'm like, well, nowhere, because we haven't launched that campaign yet. But going forward, that Tea for Two campaign is what you would call like a slow trickle of interest. So Chai was like 9 months, you've never heard of this, it's coming. And then we launch. But this one is like now 2 years later, we've been working on this thing and it's finally here. Now we can, enjoy it as a community. So figuring out like people's excitement levels. There's one game on Board Game Geek I'm following. It's been in development for like 7 years. It might be called Brazil or something. And they'll say like, hey, their Kickstarter is coming. And then they run into some issues because they can't do a campaign in Portugal. So it's taken them like another year and a half, maybe it's like 2 years now from it. And like, I've kind of forgot the game, but I'm excited to hear more about it. I'm not sure where my excitement is from the initial 2 years to now. So just managing like your own timeline, I guess, because as designers, we all have ideas and we're not sure when they'll come to fruition. So we got tons too, but if we start talking about them, then people will get excited and that'll lead to disappointment because you can't do them all.
Yeah, this actually is a good kind of segue into one of the last questions I'm going to ask today, because I know we're taking up a lot of your time. So thank you for being on, by the way. One of the things that a lot of people are curious about is like after Kickstarter, what is marketing even like for your game after Kickstarter? What do you do?
Yeah. Well, after Kickstarter, first, you take a very long nap and you deal with the game for a little while because Kickstarters are very, very exhausting. But I think for us, we just wanted to make sure that to keep up some of those big relationships with the people who've been in our groups, who've been on Instagram. So yeah, keeping up the relationships and the authenticity with them. I guess in terms of game marketing, we've reached out a lot to different consolidators or distributors and trying to get our game into retail. So that would be probably the bigger task here.
We're almost there. But
almost
figuring
there.
out, as a small publisher, you got to make those connections.
Yeah.
Even find maybe a bigger publisher who can help you.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of different ways. The worst thing is having, your extra 1,000 games in your garage, and then you have to go down to like the community fair or bake sale and try to raffle them off. Like, try to get your game where people will hear about it,
Mm-hmm.
give them away for free to reviewers. At the start, it's really hard to get lots of games to send out for free.
Yeah.
For us, we bought a 3D printer and we made 50 copies by hand.
It was a lot of work. So we spent Christmas, I think, doing it one year, putting stickers on tiles and all of that.
And pizza parties
Mm-hmm.
and whatnot, but they still were costly, and you have to pay, $30, $40 to mail it to Europe or whatnot. So it can add up quite a bit. But we would say that having different reviewers cover you is probably the most important thing you can do. There's been so many awesome campaigns we've seen, even from friends, and they'll message us like, hey, my campaign page looks awesome. Why isn't it doing well? And it's because people haven't tapped into other networks from influencers. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those previews are paid, and that's just what it is, and that's totally fine. And we need to make sure that we, pay someone what they're worth and what they're due. So, yeah, we definitely budget that for the future, mm-hmm. and we're happy to give out free games when we can. Oh, someone wants a pizza. There you go.
That's for everybody on here right now.
Well, we have lots of buttons that need to be made, so we're happy to pay pizza.
When COVID is over.
That's right. Social distancing,
yes.
Pizza party.
But yeah, even, we paid a lot to have Rodney Smith actually do our game as one of the his awesome explanations. But, at the time you're like, well, like, do we have the budget, whatever? But it was totally worth it, and it was so well produced and amazing. And that was, I guess, one of the examples where it just continues on, and it keeps bringing people into our community, keeps instructing people well on the game, right? So yeah, it's a lot of those are really, really worth it. So.
Yeah, just invest in quality, whether it's like your manufacturer or your ads. Make sure that it's a nice picture that you're promoting. Reviewers too. We love giving away free versions, but that also respects the person's time. Like, they're putting in a couple hours of work playing and learning and then recording. So nothing's free in the board game world. Yeah. But yeah, there's different ways to collaborate, which is awesome.
Got it. Yeah, no, those are really great pieces of advice, right? Like, again, leveraging other people's audiences. Because, for example, that video with Rodney forever will be on YouTube and will forever be bringing people to chai again and again and again and again, no matter where you are, in retail stores, when you're there, online, your own e-commerce site, things like that. So from here, right, what's kind of the next thing for you right now? What's next? What's coming up?
Yeah. So right now we're still working on the logistics of getting everybody their games for the second campaign, and we're really excited to do that. Then after that, it's Tea for Two, which we're thrilled for. So that's in maybe a month and a half-ish.
Whenever
we're looking at
people get their games.
Yeah, we're trying to get the games out first, and then looking at Tea for Two.
And that's the hardest part, because we really want to talk about it.
Yeah.
But we need to deliver the product first.
Yeah.
And that avoids, like miscommunication or people not sure where their games are and whatnot. So yeah, like once they're on the boat and tracking numbers start popping up, then it's like, hey, we're going to launch this in maybe a month, and here's some teasers for it. So Seriously, I love it. So yeah, just making sure that you release information in a good period of time, because interest changes and tastes and whatnot, and maybe someone hasn't clicked in your group for a while or something. So make sure that you spend a bit of time planning out what you will share and what's important.
Cool. Communication, setting expectations. Love it. Love both of it. Love all of it. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I know a lot of people will have taken a lot away from this call. If they want to get a copy of chai or like find out more about chai, where should they go to?
Yeah, so if they just go onto Google and search Steep Games, they'll be able to find our website, and all the information is on there.
Yeah, no pressure. We've sold
pressure.
out everywhere. Just in the States, we have a few copies left, but we'll have some more soon in a month when the boat shows up.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for sharing all this knowledge with everybody.
You too.
Yeah,
Thank you.
All right. Bye. And that wraps up our episode today. If you found what we talked about today helpful in any way, please be sure to leave a review to help others find this podcast. And most importantly, if you're feeling that fire and you're ready to get started on your Kickstarter campaign, be sure to head to the show notes of the podcast. I've linked some of my resources that others have used to successfully launch and get funded. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Board Game Marketing Podcast. For daily tips and advice, find us in the Board Game Marketing group on Facebook. See you next week.